I wanted to cover a very quick point on here that I was thinking of just doing in a post, but then I thought it's so much easier to say it because I want to cover quite a few points on it. But basically, when I was on the journey to recovery from OCD, well, first of all, when I was suffering from OCD, this is a thing that only OCD sufferers who really understand what OCD feels like, how horrible it feels like to be stuck in OCD for a long time. They realise when you feel like every day is so difficult, physical sensations so difficult all the time. Every day just feels just a challenge to even walk, move, do anything. When you're in that position, there's a thing that we know about. It's not always covered, but it's a thing that when I say everyone will relate to. Now, even when you're suffering like that, you may not be suicidal. I was never suicidal. But I had this thought that used to be there a lot. And it used to be an envy for people that were old, or people that were old and were going to die soon. Now that sounds terrible, but that was the extent of the suffering. Because I'd suffered so badly, I was always feeling like I just wanted relief from that. Now, obviously, relief is not death, but your brain is so old in terms of sort of how it's adapted. It only thinks of that. That's why with people with suicide, it's the kind of trick of the brain where the brain sort of convinces us like, oh yeah, that's a move, which is a disastrous move because it ends all hope. So it's never it's the brain comes up with it, but it's never a good move. But when I was suffering with OCD, certainly there was many times where I used to think, God, I envy people who are old because they're going to die soon, and then they won't be in this suffering. So I didn't want to die, but the brain was looking for a sort of a way out. So it used to think that. And it's something that OCD sufferers often relate to, but it's not often spoken about. And then when I started to move towards recovery, what happened was I started to feel incredible because my life was coming back and I felt all the freedom, and I felt both physically and mentally, and I could suddenly feel like I did when I was younger. And it was like it was unbelievable sensation at first because I felt like I was just being alive again. And that feeling I wanted to literally like shout down the street because I felt so good. But at the same time, no one even knew I was suffering, and nobody could even understand the journey and the extent of what I'd been on. So it didn't even make any difference. Like people would say I went for dinner with someone that night, they weren't aware of that situation that I was in. So it didn't work like that. But for me inside, it was like a complete shake-up. It completely changed. And then as I got to recovery and completely got back to normal life, and not knowing I couldn't tell the difference between having OCD at all, it was a big change. But then, as the post by Mujed did today on the meme, you very, very quickly get back into the old way of life, and then usual problems jump to the top of the list, other things come up, other problems, that normal life-related scenarios, and then very soon we go back to the way we were. So that's very much the case of how it works. But it's an interesting journey towards that part of the journey, but it took a long time to get to there. But I wanted to just sort of talk a bit about how I got to that feeling and what it felt like when I was just becoming recovered. Mainly for me was physical sensations, so much physical anxiety gone, being able to exercise fully, not having chronic guilt anymore, so just felt like alive and free, able to feel back connected with society and life again, living life very differently. So it was a big change in that way. But yeah, getting rid of all the physical symptoms was a massive change, all the muscle tension and so on. How many years did I suffer? Well, from the age of about 17 to 24, so you're talking a long time, and very, very severe harm OCD is, if you follow this account, you'll see the extent of all the different things. Sensory motor was very difficult, harm OCD was very difficult. They were the main one latched for a long time, moving between a few thoughts and sometimes just latched on one. Existential OCD for a very long time, all of those. All ranges of physical symptoms that I often talk about: terrible acid reflux, burnt all my whole esophagus, couldn't swallow food, had problems choking, had to have Had to have quite a lot done there to get me back to being able to function better in relation to eating. I was on a diet of soup for ages. All kinds of horrible physical symptoms and back injuries. What other things? Just infection, skin infection from very bad eczema caused by anxiety. All kinds of horrible situations that I went through as part of the journey. Some a lot worse than others. Some nowhere near as bad as others. So that was a lot of the OCD journey, but the main things were obviously locked on guilt for years, every second of every day, thinking that I'd done something terrible, that kind of stuff. So yeah, combinations of those. I'll go into it in a lot more detail in another Instagram live at some point soon, but I thought I'd just cover on, cover up some of those, cover, I was trying to read a question there, cover all of those other sections of the recovery journey in another live that I will put up soon. Alright guys, I'll see you later, take it easy.